Charity Village Connects. Today we're talking about the critical need for the nonprofit sector to embrace digitization for all of its operations, including fundraising. And we're very fortunate that this episode corresponds with the publication of a recent report from the PayPal Giving Fund on the status of online giving called Future of Giving Online Across Generations. Joining me today is Wen-Chih O'Connell, the Executive Director of PayPal Giving Fund Canada, to tell us more. Welcome, Wen-Chih.
Thanks, Mary. Thanks for having me.
The PayPal Giving Fund report around generational online giving in Canada is really a new way of looking at the need for digitization of the nonprofit sector, but it's kind of a sort of a well-known sort of issue as well among nonprofits. It points to some obvious differences among age groups related to the way that they like to give. Can you give us a little background on this report and why it's important for Canadian nonprofits and charities?
For sure. We know that the past few years have impacted charities in so many ways. And one of the things that is really important to PayPal Giving Fund and to me personally is to leverage our resources to help support the charity sector in Canada. So I consulted with the good people at Asia and Giving Tuesday, who led roundtables last year to gather and identify the most pressing questions the sector has, where more data could help answer those questions. Some of those key questions were around, what are the current giving trends in online giving? How have donor behaviors been affected by the pandemic? What are the motivations and barriers that donors face when making donations online? And how do we tap into new donor pools, particularly how do we encourage younger donors to give more? So given PayPal Giving Fund's mission to help connect charities with donors and new funds online, it made sense for us to commission a survey to hear directly from Canadian donors on their preferences and the impact of technology on their giving, and to extract those insights from the data that can help inform Canadian charities as they look to develop their donor engagement and fundraising strategies going forward. So our report presents a peek into the future of giving in Canada and aims to provide actionable tips and direction on how charities can ensure their online donations continue to grow.
Well, the key focus in many respects of the report is on understanding how different generations of donors actually behave. Can you explain how you classified those generations? And then we'll ask about what you've observed about how they like to give.
We used the Pew Research definition for generations, and there is a table with the age ranges for each generation included in the report. We asked survey respondents their age and assigned them to their respective generation. We also used some soft quotas to ensure our respondent group was nationally representative by age and other factors like gender and geographic region. And the generation names that we used were from younger to older: Gen Z, Millennials, Gen X, Baby Boomers, and the Silver Generation.
And so, what does the report actually tell us about what motivates these different generations to give?
It was really fascinating to go through the data to see where the significant differences in giving motivations across the generations were. And we definitely saw a split between the older and the younger donors. We found that older donors in the groups, 41 years and up, like to give to their favorite charities and causes. They really care deeply about that cause or the charities that they support. And they tend to give regularly through recurring donations, and they feel happy to be helping others through their giving. On the other hand, millennials and Gen Z are not necessarily giving to the same causes and charities all the time. While they also like to be helping others, they're particularly motivated by knowing the impact that their giving is making in the community. They like to support causes that are popular in the moment, such as social movements or events in the news, and their giving is much more likely to be influenced by their social networks and the influencers that they follow.
We've talked a little bit about previously in our previous discussions about microgiving, which again I think maybe was not in this report. But do you see any sort of observations about microgiving and the kind micro donations that young people like to use, and the kind of observations that you had from this report in terms of, is it supporting that other kind of research that you've done?
Yeah, so we did see that a lot of younger donors in particular like to give to in a variety of different ways. So they're using a variety of different methods to do their online giving. It's not just donations on a charity's website. It's also through, like you were saying, micro donations that are linked to a purchase that they're giving online. So it's a give at checkout sort of a scenario. They also like to give through social networks as well as through live streaming. And so we are seeing that online donations and the methods is a very diverse a group of ways that donors are now starting to give. And that really, when we think about online giving, it has to encompass that very diverse group of methods.
So I guess you have to have different strategies about it. So, if you're a charity and you're trying to reach multi generations, you have to have different ways of doing so. So, what tips would you suggest for making sure that you're reaching baby boomers and the silver generation donors? They clearly are mission driven and have sort of a longer kind of relationship with the various charities that are their favorite causes. Could you sort of give us more depth about understanding their behavior?
Sure. The stereotype that we hear about the older generations is that they really eschew technology, they resist doing anything online. And while that might be true for some, our data actually showed that two-thirds of baby boomer and silver donors are already giving online, and 62% of them are likely to give online in the coming year. So it's not uh, online is still where you're going to be able to reach these donors as well. Um, you know, they are very loyal with their donations. And for charities that have a base of these donors already, the key to retaining them and increasing touch points with them may be in helping them feel more comfortable with giving to your charity online. And some of the most important factors that these generations are looking for when giving online are one, the security of their financial information, and two, receiving a tax receipt. So, offering online donation options that ensure their financial information is secure and will provide tax receipts will be key. And I'll just note here that PayPal Giving Fund issues tax receipts for donations of any amount made on our partner platforms, including Facebook, GoFundMe, and PayPal. So charities who receive funds from us through these platforms don't have to issue receipts for those donations. And also, we are fortunate to leverage the PayPal payment processing technology that is highly trusted and extremely secure, of course, due to the great investments that they make to ensure it's safe.
I think as well, we've discussed earlier in other discussions about the importance of the future of charitable and nonprofit organizations about engaging with the younger generations like Gen Z and, of course, millennials as they mature. What tips do you have for organizations wanting to encourage them to give?
Gen Z and millennials are, of course, the generations that will be driving the future of giving. So it's really important, like as you said, to understand what motivates them to give and how they like to give. We found in our research that these generations are giving to causes and charities that capture their attention. The majority of these generations pay more attention to the causes that they hear about on social media, and by leveraging current events and social media platforms, charities can attempt to catch their attention. And then making sure that they know the impact their donation will have and making it really easy for these donors to be able to share about their support so that they can help promote your charity to their own networks is going to be really important. Our research also found that over half of Gen Z donors prefer to give their time and talents over giving monetary donations. So, engaging them in volunteer activities will help to show them the impact of the work that donations are fueling, and again, encourage them to post about their experience on social media. And there are other data points outlined in our report that can help charities to formulate strategies to help to start to build a base among millennial and Gen Z donors.
So, if we are thinking about a larger strategy for nonprofits and charities, we know that the strategy has to be different if they're trying to attract donors from an older generation than the strategies that they would use for reaching and engaging, perhaps for the first time, the younger generation. I wonder if you could give me an overview of just the kind of comparison of the two different strategies that a nonprofit might have to keep in mind when they're building out their outreach for donors.
Sure, and I think that this is actually where the how we want charities to be able to use our report kind of comes into play. So, our report really talks about what are the key factors that the various generations are looking for as they're giving online, as well as, are they planning to still give online in the future? And I think we saw that across all generations, donors are planning to give online, but what they're looking for when they're giving online may be different, right? So if you are a charity and you have a large base of older donors that maybe have primarily been giving offline, and you want to look to see if you can transition them from being offline donors to online donors, then you may want to start, messaging them about the security of the online donation portal that you're offering them to be able to give through. You may want to let them know that they will still get their donation receipt as well. For the younger donors, again, it's around capturing their attention, right? And trying to find ways to make yourselves present on social networks that are reaching those younger donors. And it could be a matter of partnering with an influencer that has a following of people in this younger donor base, and doing a project with them where they are promoting your charity or your cause and showing really what the impact of the donations are going to have in the community or in the cause that they're working towards addressing. And so really looking at how do we leverage those social networks, how do we make sure that the impact is communicated front and center, and how do we make it really easy for them to also share about their support for your charities with their own networks, is also kind of key when you're looking to build up that younger donor base.
And the report also discusses the current state of online giving in Canada generally, as well as future predictions. Can you point us to the most important findings in this regard?
Yeah, I think there are sort of three key findings that I think will impact fundraising for Canadian nonprofits and charities. We've all heard that online donations really exploded during the pandemic, which is expected given, the lockdowns. But what do donors say they plan to do going into this coming year as restrictions start to ease? Our study found that the majority of Canadian donors who donated online in 2021 said they are likely to keep donating online this year. And over a third of offline only donors also said they are likely to donate online in the coming year as well. So first, donors in Canada are planning to keep giving online, including those who didn't even give online even during the pandemic. Um, so online giving and digital fundraising will be key to the future for the Canadian charitable sector. Second, while all generations are giving online, millennials are really the generation to target for online giving. Over three-quarters of millennials gave online in the past 12 months, and which is the highest of all generations. And on average, millennials gave almost two-thirds of their donations online in 2021, more again than all other generations. Millennials have a reputation for being aware of and active in social issues, and they're also now at a stage in life where they generally have more earning power and capacity to give. So, those first two findings really point to the fact that charities need to offer donors the ability to give online as we look to the future. But we also found that younger generations, especially, like I mentioned earlier, are using a range of different methods for their donations, such as social media, at checkout when shopping, crowdfunding, or via live streaming. So, donating on a charity's website is still one of the top ways that donors across all generations want to give. But the concept of online giving and what methods can be used is broadening. And charities should really try to be present or at least leverage services that allow them to be present on as many different platforms as they can. So, in summary, the data is telling us that donors want to give online. Millennials are especially online, and the methods for online giving are really diversifying.
Are we seeing much difference between Gen Z and millennials?
Some. I mean, like I said, when we were looking at the data, there was that kind of that divide right around between the millennials down and the Gen X up. But there were a few differences. So one was around the influencers, right? Gen Z really was, a lot more swayed by influencers that they followed. something like 60% of the Gen Z group said that they would be more likely to give to causes and charities that the influencers that they follow gave to or supported. Um, and I think the millennials also were, some of the top things that they were looking for when they were giving online. It tended toward the security of their financial information and the trustworthiness of the platform. And, whereas the Gen Z, they really, really cared about the impact. That was kind of key for the Gen Z, was knowing the impact of that donation that they were going to give.
So, given all these findings, how do you think these will impact the fundraising activities of Canadians and nonprofits and charities? I mean, seriously, they obviously have to have really work on their online strategy and be much more sophisticated than we've seen in recent years.
Yeah. So again, when we looked at the data and what donors are looking for around, what they're giving online. So if charities are really looking to create a better online giving experience for their donors, they really want to look at the 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 data security and trustworthiness of the online payment platform that's being used, as well as the ease of the transaction and the convenience of that giving opportunity. Those are all top factors for donors across all the generations. So it will be important for charities offering those online giving experience to make sure that they are using trusted networks, that the transaction is really easy to complete, and the opportunities to give are optimized for the gadget that those donors are using to get online, and that the opportunity shows up on the platforms that donors are already using for the convenience factor, right? So part of PayPal Giving Fund's vision is to incorporate giving into everyday life. And we look to do that by integrating seamless giving opportunities into those online platforms that millions of people use every day. The value that brings to charities, not having to do that technical integration or optimizing for mobile giving themselves, is what really motivates me in the work that we're doing through our partnerships to provide those easy, convenient, and trusted giving opportunities to support charities in Canada.
With all of this, are there still barriers that prevent donors from giving online? And what do organizations need to do to mitigate these kinds of barriers?
Yeah, we asked donors about their top concerns when giving online, and the resulting data provides some insight into where efforts should be made to alleviate those concerns. The biggest concern, which 74% of Canadian donors indicated, is just knowing where their donation is going, which they feel that they do when they give offline. The second issue is feeling more connected to the charity when they're giving offline, which is why 62% would prefer to give in person than online, is that personal connection. So if we want to encourage more comfort with giving online, we need to assure donors that online donations are secure and are indeed making it to the charity that they want to be receiving the donation. We also need to ramp up communication techniques that help charities make a more personal connection with donors who decide to switch to giving online.
And so those things might be around messaging around the impact, thanking the donor, not just doing the transaction, but and not just giving a tax receipt, but actually trying to message around providing impact statements of what their donation has achieved. Is that kind of what we're talking about in terms of more sophisticated communication sort of patterns?
For sure, yeah, definitely the thank you. I think all donors are would like to have a thank you. I think most people would like to have a thank you for gifts that they make. Um, yeah, and really that impact statement, that's particularly going to be effective with the younger donors, for them to feel like, oh yes, my donation is going to make a difference, and I'm going to encourage my social networks to also support the same charity.
So, what does the report indicate in terms of the future of online giving in Canada? What's the big picture?
Yeah, so the data really shows that online giving in Canada is here to stay and will only increase going into the future. So even though younger generations are going to drive that increase in the long run, older donors are increasingly giving online, and it's a matter of addressing their concerns and tapping into their giving motivations to support them in shifting to digital giving. We also have to keep in mind that giving online encompasses all kinds of diversified methods of digital giving. Um, so, the online giving experiences that are easy, convenient, and offer data security while providing transparency around the impact of donations will be the ones that will successfully raise more funds to sustain charities in their important work. And I believe that the work that PayPal Giving Fund is doing to increase the availability of these giving experiences across more online platforms will help the sector as a whole to grow.
Well, after the extreme disruption of fundraising due to COVID in 2020 and certainly 2021, do you feel nonprofits and charities have made progress in moving to digital? What have you seen? And is that a sign of hope that this is a journey that will continue in terms of the embracing of digital giving?
Yeah, I think the charities who survived till now are looking to the future and are perhaps trying to reassess their fundraising strategies in the current state of the world. They may be wondering if they can go back to the before times and whether, the move to digital was only a temporary necessity. But the data has made it very clear that the future of giving is online, and digital marketing and fundraising has become an essential and permanent reality. While progress in moving to digital is being made, many charities are still struggling with how to transition to an online world. And I want to assure charities strapped for resources, charities that are new to digital, that they don't need to feel totally overwhelmed by the prospect of this shift, as they can take it one step at a time. Take a look at your donor base and see if it makes sense to try to transition more of them to give digitally, or if you want to maybe start to target new groups. Our report outlines data that can inform plans going forward by providing some direction and areas where charities can focus to target certain donor groups. Then you can do, one thing at a time. Please check out the resources and tools that are offered to charities at no or low cost to enable those first steps to establish an online presence and offer donors an option to donate online or through their mobile phone.
Well, I can imagine there's some charities out there that are thinking, "Oh my goodness, now I have to think about influencers in sort of my donation and my fundraising strategies." It's pretty daunting. What advice can you have for them? I mean, obviously they should be reading this report, but what advice might you have for some of those cash-strapped nonprofits that are trying to get their head around these new ways that they have to operate in terms of fundraising?
Yeah, like I said, really keep taking it one step at a time, looking for those services. And, PayPal Giving Fund, of course, is one of them where all you have to do as a charity is enroll with PayPal Giving Fund. You can take advantage of all of the programs that we're supporting that we power through our partners to get charities more funds online. So, for a charity that, you know, doesn't doesn't have an online presence perhaps, just enrolling with PayPal Giving Fund, looking to see, oh, there's a page here on the PayPal fundraising site that I can direct donors to, and donors are able to actually give to me online. All of those, I can ask my supporters to start a fundraiser on Facebook, or a campaign on GoFundMe, and donors can give online, use their credit card if they want to. They can use PayPal. They can use whatever funding source that they would like, and they can make donations through those fundraisers or through those campaigns, and the charity will receive them. And we actually don't charge fees on any of the services that we provide. So it's really minimizing the cost to those donations as much as we can, and maximizing the dollars that charities are receiving. And so these are just some small steps that they can do, where they don't have to, have a full online integration, things like that. I think the other piece is also really keeping in mind that their website is a really important communication tool that donors across the board are really using to to do research on the charities, and the impact that these charities are having and how they're using the funds that they receive. And so, making sure that your website is up to date, that it has some, impact statements or some information about the work that you do, is going to go a long way in terms of convincing these donors, even if they're giving offline, they're still actually doing research online as well. Is going to be really important to garner that support. And yeah, again, just don't feel overwhelmed. There are some small things you can do. You can read the report. You don't have to implement all of the tips, and you don't have to do everything that we're talking about. Just pick the key nuggets that resonate with you and the work that you're doing, and the donor base that you have, and see if you can focus on that one thing. Like I said, do you already have older donors that are loyal? Let's see if we can transition some of them to giving online and giving them the messaging that online donation is very secure, that you're receiving the funds, that the information will remain secure as well. Or do you want to start, leveraging the younger donor base maybe that you have already? And how do you make things a lot more easy for them to share with their networks, and to ask them to actually do that? It doesn't hurt to ask, right? So I would say yes, those are a few of the things that charities can look at, and really just taking it one thing at a time.
Well, one thing at a time sounds like excellent advice, Wen-Chih. And also, it's always a pleasure to speak with you, and your insights and advice, as well as the great insights in this report, is always so welcome to the nonprofit sector. So thank you very much for joining us and telling us all about your latest report.
Thank you so much, Mary. I appreciate it.